Well, welcome everyone. It is great to see you. Welcome to our Coaching Cafe. Fantastic to see everyone coming on the line. Happy Freedom Day for all the Melburnians. We were just saying, I hope you've got plenty of things planned for the weekend. Welcome to our Coaching Cafe, where we're really focusing on learning from leaders in organisations who have been implementing coaching culture in their organisations. And I have on the line with us today, hi Simone, great to see you. And I have on the line today Leisa Bowness, and so I cannot wait to hear Leisa's stories and to share those case studies with you. I have promised to speed up my intro so we get more time with Leisa as well, so I will do that. So before we begin, let's just acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia, and we pay our respects to them and to their elders, past, present and emerging. And I know you're dialing in from all around Australia, perhaps live with us now or perhaps listening to this, and I know people are dialing in from overseas as well. So wherever you're dialing in from, we acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands that you are listening to the webinar today. So our agenda, we want to discuss Open Doors Coaching Cultural Framework, and this has been, the new version of the framework has been out for a while. So we want to go back to it and take a look at the Coaching Cultural Framework, but most importantly, learn from Leisa, have her share a bit of a case study, how she's actually implemented the coaching culture framework over time. So Leisa's been doing this for over 10 years now in different organisations that she's been employed by. I've promised to keep the introduction brief as well. If you are new, welcome. We are all about creating a community. We come together at this time every Friday to share learned experiences, have thought-provoking conversations. If you're after your International Coach Federation CCEU, hold on to the end of the session. I've got a slide. You can take a screenshot of the slide. And welcome, Al. Greetings from Canada. Yes, greetings, and very much acknowledging that you're joining us from a different land as well. So wonderful to have you joining in. So hello to all the regulars. I always love coming together with you every Friday, and hello to people who might be joining us for the first time as well. So this is what we're talking about. This is Open Doors Coaching Cultural Framework. For those of you that haven't been introduced to us to this, we reset the framework about, almost 2 years ago now, when we re-accredited the program, our diploma of organisational coaching with the Australian government, but also with the International Coach Federation. And we were thinking about it in terms of thinking about the framework in terms of the top half of the diagram is about the strategy. So when we're introducing a culture of coaching within our workplaces, we're thinking about the strategy, the organization's values and visions, how coaching links through to that, the workforce strategy. We're thinking about organizational artifacts, which are basically those things that we see within the organizations that tell us that we have a culture of coaching within the organization. So they might be job descriptions, they might be performance reviews, it might be tools or posters or things like that, websites, intranets that show us that we have coaching. They might be internal coaches on an intranet that you can book time with, things like that. Underneath, the bottom half is what we call the enablers. So these are the things that we do that enable the implementation of the strategy. So these things enable the implementation of the workforce strategy, of the organizational values and visions, and they enable the visual signs and the tools that we're using. So you might be doing individual coaching, you might be doing coaching in your business unit, you might be accrediting internal coaches, like a lot of you are accredited coaches. You might be introducing coaching programs like Leader as Coach, Coaching 101, introducing coaching into the different programs you're running. Or you might be involved in the other element, which is looking at evaluating feedback loops, making sure that we're returning, getting a return on investment for the investment that we're making. So what we're really thinking about here is that you can, as Leisa talked about in our previous Coaching Cafe together, you can start anywhere. And maybe I can hand this over to you, Leisa, because you were thinking, one of the things you did share was you don't have to wait. Maybe you can't influence the top half of the diagram in terms of the strategy, but you can start working potentially on any of those parts of the lower half of the diagram. So that just gives you a bit of an overview. If you want a fuller overview, you can go to our blog, because we've actually blogged about the coaching cultural framework. And so just a quick overview, because really what we're here today is to learn from you, Leisa. Leisa Bowness I've known for many years now, when we originally did some work back at Sunset.
Decades.
Absolutely. I'm not going to apply for long service leave for you, believe me. We want to go into our second and our third decade together. So you can see there, Leisa's Untitled, currently manager of organisational capability, safety and wellbeing at Resources Safety and Health in Queensland. And as I said, we worked for many years at Sunsuper to introduce a culture of coaching. But Leisa, perhaps I can hand it over to you. I'll put up the framework there, but I would be really keen for you to share perhaps how you use these enablers to enable the top half, the workforce strategy, or perhaps any of your reflections. I just want to hand over to you, and we want to listen to you, not to me. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Natalie. And thanks again for the opportunity to be here, and for everybody joining in to celebrate this culture of coaching that is so beneficial for us all in so many ways. As I was getting ready again, Natalie, I was reflecting on my first edition framework for coaching, which, we used to follow this kind of line of sight approach where we would go up and down from the vision and values to the individuals and where all the touch points were from there. And I talked quite a bit it was actually really good reflective activity going through this new model that you've got. It's absolutely fabulous. And I love the colour, of course. But also it was a reflective practice for me to go through and go, okay, so where are the things that have happened, or what I've identified, or what I've done now? So, and it's been, when I was doing that, I actually recognised that it was a little bit different, in private at Sunsuper, what we did there, and what I've done previously in public sector. And I'll probably talk a little bit about, Sunsuper, but also about what I'm working through now with coaching culture, because this is a new place. It's a new government agency, and we've only been in place for just, coming up to 18 months. So everything here is new and fresh. But reflecting on Sunsuper, you're right. We talked quite a bit last time about starting where we could, going in, getting champions, individuals and teams within divisions of Sunsuper, and starting with little projects that those people had that were maybe smaller pieces of work but had a big impact. So I've spoken about the quality management framework that they were trying to implement at Sunsuper. It was to go in very quickly, and it had a big impact on, the reputation of that as a financial services provider heavily relies on how its customers feel about the quality of advice and confidence they have in the people they're talking to. So this is like it's a small thing, but it has a big impact. So we certainly went through many of the enablers, and that was the primary focus in that piece of work, was around focusing on the enablers and then building into the strategies above that. And, things like evaluation and feedback loops, linking that to accrediting internal coaches. So we got to a point in time where we had a range of people in our contact centre that were accredited as internal coaches. And part of that was their process was we did before, during, and after capability assessments, and gave them feedback on specific parts of their interactions with coaching conversations, but also, you know, giving the feedback themselves to other people. So, you know, we get this spider web of stuff happening throughout that enabler building. That actually then led to things being included in organizational artifacts and workforce strategy. So things like, I talked last time about how the capability of coaching was actually in the top 3 for team leader roles going forward. That is a significant artifact. Things like, you know, the fact that we had coaching, leader as coach, and, you know, business leader programs, it was an expectation that all people participated in that, and they all wanted to. So we went from, oh, you're making me sit in a room and do, I know what coaching is, to, oh, wow, you know, it's quite a privilege for me to be able to participate and get accredited as a coach myself. So that was a lot of what the Sunsuper experience was. How that's a little bit different in public service, this is my experience, and it might not be the same for everybody. I think what I've had to learn more recently is that I need to actually make the connections to the strategy stronger and then link to the enablers, because public service is all about compliance, directives, policies, what we need to adhere to. And, you know, for me, it's all about, wow, this is a great thing to do. It shows us we respect people. That's like the enabling stuff. But I realized for public service, we need to anchor in to directives, policies, structures and frameworks we have. And that kind of builds the business case to get people to start to think, oh, well, this is just not just a nice to do thing. It's not just best practice. It's actually part of being a public servant and the frameworks we have to operate in.
Yeah, it's quite a difference there. Thank you for sharing that, Leisa, because I'm thinking about the Air Force case study as well. And that was really about doing what you've talked about there, looking at the workforce strategy and thinking, how do we actually implement that workforce strategy? So it sounds similar to what you're doing here in the public service, where how do we implement that? And well, we've got these coaching tools and these coaching programs that could allow you to achieve that strategy.
Yeah, and this, actually going through this process to have a think about this before we had a catch up today, it's actually really strengthened up my business case and my business thinking around this as a framework. You know, I've pondered on this. I still do every time I get an opportunity, I talk about conversations for performance and well-being, which is what I call it now rather than coaching conversations. So I throw it in everywhere I can. I've noticed I'm getting much more success now, though, that I link it back to things like we have a positive performance management directive. And that actually says one of the key principles is regular and constructive communication, recognizing people's strengths and valuing their contributions, supporting people to improve their performance if needed. And I have found that's actually connecting really well with people, and giving a kind of a giving a kind of a rationale around, well, that's a directive. This is why we have conversations for performance and well-being.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the Simon Sinek, the why, the how, the what. And so this is really talking about why coaching conversations are so important. It's to enable that strategy that you're talking about. So you want that in your people. This is how we're going to do it, by introducing coaching, by introducing some of these enablers. And what we're going to do is put people in the room and teach them coaching skills. So it's getting a real clear distinction between the why, the how, and the what there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, as I said, we're a new kind of startup government body. We're making progress. It's hard, you know, when you're trying to change things but keep the business running, change the business. So there's that balancing act of when I have any opportunity, when people are, you know, where they have the space to take in the message. Okay, here's the positive performance management directive, and this is why our conversations for performance are really important. So again, it's some of those basic things I talked about last time. Take advantage of any opportunity and conversation to be a conversation to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where the coaching principles come into it as well, isn't it? Because coaching's in our blood. It's
Yes.
We're not going to use coaching for every conversation that we have, but it's in our blood. That's what that section, that middle thing is. It connects everything. It's the principles that we're showing. So we're having those conversations.
Yeah.
So definitely keen to hear if you have any questions for Leisa. Please feel free to type a message into the chat box. Now is a fantastic opportunity, as we said, to learn from the leaders. What I'm interested in, Leisa, can you tell us a bit more about the business case? So does the business case start with, as you said, in this role that you're in, starts with workforce strategy, builds the coaching business case to support that? Can you tell us more about the business case?
Well, that's a good question because I'm still working through that.
Okay.
So my vision is if I only did one capability development program over the next 12 months, I would want that to be around the conversations for performance and well-being and all of the tools and scaffolding that support that as a coaching artifact, so to speak. So that's my idea, but I've actually I think the connecting it to all of those above the line strategic things is actually where I will get traction, because that's what people, you know, we need to manage our risk, and that is a fair thing to focus on. And where I am now, we're a risk-based regulator, and it's kind of getting into learning the language of what's going to make a difference for the people you're trying to sell your idea to, basically. Learn the language and connect to any of those. Like, I just went through this model and I went, okay, what kind of things do I have as organizational artifacts? What have I got? We know we've got the values and the vision. Workforce strategy. We're a small organization, so we don't necessarily have a workforce strategic plan at the moment. So what else can I do? Oh, well, I'll connect public sector, Public Service Commission, have a 10-year human capital outlook. Use that. So don't just think, oh, well, we don't have that, particularly if you're a small place or you're one person doing it on yourself. Think about what else is out there in the industry that you work in, and also what are any government frameworks that drive government initiatives in your state or territory, because they will always still give you some intelligence around what you're trying to work towards to contribute to the community you're in.
Actually, that is an absolutely fantastic tip. I was thinking about just recently, the University of New South Wales have just released the Future of Work document. So I will be, you know, doing a coaching cafe on that shortly, but linking through to the Australian Public Service, the APS Future of Work, linking anything you're doing through to those kind of documents or those kind of strategies is a really great tip.
Just ask me, I've got plenty.
Yeah, they are very big documents to wade through.
They are, yes.
But I don't mind the executive summary, I've got to say, but I do like to wade through the detail as well. Yeah. Well, thanks, Jonathan. Looking forward to having you join us on the Coaching Cafe as well to learn from you. But Jonathan's got a question here for us as well, Leisa, asking, to what extent did you need to get executive or senior leader buy-in to support and or sponsor your approach to building a coaching culture? Yeah,
good question. So I'm going to talk about at Sunsuper here, because we did end up with very strong CEO, senior executive support for this coaching being an integral part of our culture and our capability development and performance objectives. So again, this is my start small. So we just started, we didn't have executive support initially. We knew that we wanted to enhance the coaching capability in the learning and development team so we could support the quality management project that was going on around the business. So we started with that approach. It was professional development for us, so it was a great opportunity to get involved. And the success of each of those little projects, it gets more of the spotlight, right? So have good examples of what performance and success measures might be for certain little interventions you might get involved in. So the quality management one, I think we increased quality performance with this specific group of people. I think it was around 19% through adopting this coaching approach. So they're the things people start to pay attention to, right? Oh, can you save money? I save money. So where I actually got the best buy-in over the years working with Natalie to get more and more groups of these people through the certificate in coaching. What I found was then it was actually easier to get people interested because there was this kind of, have you all seen that TED video, TED talk? It only takes one lone nut and then all the other people come and join in on the dance. I can share that YouTube video. It was a bit like that. You get momentum. And we kind of got to a point where Natalie and I worked together on, okay, we want to make this more sustainable. So we actually created a whole approach around how could we deliver this to more people by having more internally accredited coaches and et cetera, et cetera. And when you could demonstrate we could deliver to this many people and save this much money, and then we got in on the government funding, putting a business case through my board member at the time to the board was actually so much more successful. So it can sometimes take time, and you need to consider your delegation processes and your approval processes and where you need to go. Whatever you've got a justification for, even if you love coaching and you want to do a lunch and learn and share some ideas with people in your team or in your business unit, just think about those things that, I don't know. I don't think we'd necessarily need executive approval to do a lunch and learn, but I'm just saying respect your approval processes. I'm not saying go rogue, but there are things you can do that would be actually beneficial to yourself and the people around you.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I mean, it's always the preference, isn't it, to have that top sponsor, that top buy-in. There's an organization we're working with now where the CEO has actually done an introduction to coaching video, and everything else flows from his desire and reasons and the strategic intent to introduce a culture of coaching. We can't always get that. So that's where your other message, I think, Leisa, is around, start where you can, make a difference yourself, look for individual champions across the different business units that might have a problem or a need that can be solved, and work on it from there. Yeah, so I think the best case scenario is the top cover.
Well, that would be great. Yeah. But I haven't ever started there myself.
Yeah, which is wonderful. Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking about was that the need to keep an eye on return on investment evaluation and feedback loops. So at some point you're going to be asked the question. So what I heard you say is you think about how are we going to measure that? You're thinking about that early in the piece, so that you could be collecting that data as you go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think initially it was I was lucky the quality project actually had some really great objectives because it was set out as a project with a project plan, etc. And that actually raised my awareness and opened my eyes to putting those measures in place. So think about whatever that could be if it relates to, I don't know if people have wellbeing indexes or do regular employee engagement surveys. We here in Queensland, we have Working for Queensland survey that is done every 12 months across the sector. That gives us some really good insights into where enhancing the capability around conversations for performance and well-being. So think about anything that is already within your system that you can leverage to give you return on investment or demonstrated cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our big tips there is when people say, how can you measure this? I like to ask the organisation, what are you measuring now? So if you've got a wellbeing survey where you're measuring things, or you've got a customer satisfaction surveys, or you're doing pulse surveys, let's take a look at those metrics, and then we can introduce the coaching intervention and see what difference it makes over time.
Where are the connections? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of, sorry.
No, go on, yeah.
That's the importance of identifying your organisational artefacts as well, because they will also give you some points of evidence that you can tap into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think collecting those organisational artefacts, like the case studies, putting people up on the intranet, that starts to be built. I remember the examples, the Sun Super example. All of a sudden we had coaches, all of a sudden we had case studies, all of a sudden we had posters or things, and we needed a repository for them. So that's where where the website or the intranet might get built as well, extra articles going up and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic. So another question here from, I think it's Jennifer, says, well, asking this question, how were you able to provide evidence of the return on investment or progress in performance linked back to establishing the coaching culture? So Jennifer, just so you know, we did run a webinar on this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So if you go to our blog, there's a whole 2 webinars I actually did on return on investment, one on the qualitative measures, and then one on, we got out our calculators and did the quantitative measures as well. So feel free to hit those blogs. But Leisa, perhaps the comment from you, the need to provide that evidence of return on investment?
Yeah, I think for me now, one of my key things is working for Queensland employee engagement. That is a significant thing that, again, people pay attention to already. Executive pays attention to it, and thinking about also, you can also get some kinds of connection to your performance management framework. So if you want to go down that path, number of cases and least number of cases or whatever, you can also do, we also have an online performance and development module where we actually ask people to track regular conversations. So we can also demonstrate how many conversations are happening across. Are people just doing it every 6 months, or is there a regular, at least monthly? So they're kind of things that we can have a look at. In Sun Super, it was much more sophisticated because we had budget and money savings and all kinds of things like that. We also had, because it was a customer service, it's a financial services institution, there are always voice of the customer, things like that, quality results, we eventually got this into giving people general advice in the call center using a coaching framework. So how many general advice calls are people doing? So yeah, have a good look.
Yeah, and as we were going to say, it's not to say that coaching is the only thing that's been done. We can't claim the entire benefit, as we always talk about on return on investment, but you can go, well, that was the major intervention. That's the major piece of work that was done. We've got examples where you had the engagement scores of team leaders, for example. Then the new team leader comes in with a coaching approach. Sure, there's lots of other things going on, but when those engagement scores go up, as I know a number of you have experienced on the line, because the team leader's now using a coaching approach, you can say, well, you can't only say that's about coaching, but you can't claim a lot of it. So
take it wherever you can get it. Yep.
Yeah, take that. Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Well, I can't believe, I'm so pleased that we got to hear from you, Leisa, and thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience. We all know that we could listen to you forever. So unfortunately, we've just got this brief amount of time, but from the entire alumni, you know, it's just wonderful for you to be able to share your knowledge and experience with us. So thank you very much.
It's been great. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for joining in. Thanks, Natalie, for your
Yeah.
ongoing wisdom.
Oh, you're welcome. It's just great to be involved, isn't it, really? So for those of you who are interested also, the coaching cultural framework is featured in Bring Out Their Best, but it's also a large part of the conversations we have during our diploma of organisational coaching. So that might be something you're interested in for your future development. Don't forget mental health first aid training as well. Most importantly, we always say to everyone, enjoy your coaching, and to the Melbourne people, enjoy your rest of your Friday and your Freedom Day. So thank you everyone for joining us. And if you'd like to hold on the line just to get that CCEU certificate, then please do that. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you again, Leisa. Wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.